Well, good morning and welcome to our DRB University session for today. Usually the first few minutes of our session, we give time for people to show up here. I'd like to welcome you to our session today on simple items and button setup. This is SiteWatch B03, the third course in the basics course of SiteWatch. And this will cover making some simple changes and adding buttons to the SiteWatch system. Talk about today's agenda. We're going to basically touch SiteWatch items. SiteWatch is one of those products. It's our legacy product at DRB. It's been around a long time. But with that, it was really created, I've been at DRB for nearly 25 years. You're going to find out here in a moment. And I've been training SiteWatch for over 20 years. And going back to where we were at the beginning of this product, it was really created for IT level folks that understand item creation and configuration kind of on the IT scale. So it wasn't, unfortunately for your case in a lot of instances, created really for that end use in mind, like our new product Patheon. But on to that effect, there are some simple things that you can do and simple understanding of the product that you can get that'll help you make some changes without having to necessarily rely on DRB every time you call. So we will talk about the features of the items that cause them to behave in certain ways within transactions. We're going to talk about, in particular, business rules and how business rules will affect how an item affects other items or checks for other items in a transaction. We're also going to just do a very simple demonstration. In a group like this, it would be nice if we had more than 45 minutes of content. As you can see at the bottom, we're going to take probably about 5 minutes to do some brief introductions of who we are and which car wash we're from. But then have about 45 minutes of content, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. So we're going to be doing a simple coupon demonstration. I'll be doing a demonstration for you, and then also a demonstration on some best practices on when we create terminal buttons, how to find those pages where those buttons live, and then how to update those buttons. First of all, I want to talk about items just in general. An item is a very generic name, but an item is really anything that's going to be in a transaction, and this could be something, washes are items or combinations of items. You can even have multiple pieces, each of those pieces called an item that's put together as a package, and that could be your wash. For example, a package or a grouping of items. A single item could be a coupon, a discount, it could be a tender, it could be really anything that you sell on site in any profit center. There's going to be some sort of item associated with that. And the first thing that we're going to talk about with items is kind of their behavior in some of those important fields. We'll start with the item type. So just to get some familiarity, I'm going to flip over here to a demo SiteWatch server. I can tell that it's a SiteWatch server by this orange background, kind of this autumn orange background, and it actually says SiteWatch server on the background written there, so it's easy to determine that we're on the server. If you don't have that wallpaper, however, a quick way to determine that you're on the server is the little blue star or sometimes the red star if things aren't going exactly perfect at your site. And that, if you hover it over, notice it names it, that's the SiteWatch Program Manager. So just a quick review, the Program Manager is the program that starts and stops all of the different pieces of SiteWatch on the server. On the server, when we use the term server, we're talking about that main computer where your database lives. It talks to all of your terminals on site. So whether you have XPTs or tablets or keypad terminals or any of the OTTs, any of the different variations of our terminals, they all will talk to a central hub, and that is the SiteWatch server. I'm doing my changes on the SiteWatch server so that I can not only show you the SiteWatch server, but I also have this program here that we're looking at is the terminal controller. This is the program that's used on all of our touchscreen terminals, OTTs, our tablet terminals. Anything that operates the car wash or performs sales is likely going to use this with the exception of XPT. XPT has its own XPT.exe program that it runs. So I'm showing you from a SiteWatch server typically so that I have access to both the terminal controller that you see here, but then also the program that's used for configuration. This is an on-premise only program. In other words, you may be aware that you can go into SiteWatch Web and you can set up a new employee and you can run some reports and you can do those things within SiteWatch Web. Those options from a configuration standpoint are limited to just configuring your employees. That's about the extent of the things that you can do online in SiteWatch Web. So when we're talking about configuring items, we're really talking about running this program here. It's the program, if you can't tell what the little icon is supposed to be, it's a watch face with a car in front of it. It's called Site Manager. And the Site Manager program predates the ability to log in through the web to get to SiteWatch. This was when you could only do it on premise, or you would remotely connect in through PC Anywhere or LogMeIn or some remote access software. So I guess what I am trying to say here is that the prerequisite to setting up or doing the configuration that we're talking about today is that you are on premise or you're remotely connected in, and likely you would be remotely connected into a manager station. A manager workstation will likely have a blue background. It'll say manager station. It'll have the site manager icon, and it'll have the terminal controller icon. Those are the two that are required to do this type of configuration. The site manager is required to do the configuration part. The terminal controller is required to do the testing, which I'll find even myself after 20 plus years of doing this, I need to test to make sure that I have all the things correct in our setup. So when you log into Site Manager, you will have to log in with user access that gives you both access to, there's two editors we're going to be talking about today. The first one is found under Setup, General System Configuration, and then Terminal Pages. That's where we're going to set up our buttons. I'm actually going to close this down, and you'll find out why in just a moment. The second one is Setup, Sales Items, Categories, and Reports, and then Items and Barcodes. It's the first menu. The first setup option on the list is the ability to add, change, and mess with your items and barcodes. Now, if you're a part of some of our other basics classes, we teach you about how to navigate through this. I will do a quick overview. One of those things is you'll notice here the little folder icon with the magnifying glass is the filter option. And I find that the easiest way to find items in here, certainly you can go, if I cancel there, I can navigate through all these subfolders, and I'm seeing individual items, right? And as I click on these folders over here, these are actually sorted by what is called a report category. I can find my individual items sometimes that way. Wash coupons, for example, if I have a small list and it's easy to manage, I can go in there and see what types of coupons I have that are currently active. I do want to point out there are other couple of tips and tricks that are helpful here. One is under Tools and Preferences. We're set on my system to show enabled, and typically you're going to be set to show only records active at your site. So if you're a site within a multi-site organization, you're only going to be seeing your items and items that are currently active. If I uncheck the show enabled records, then it may actually show me some things that have been deleted or removed. And I'm not seeing any right now, but just for the sake of argument, if I wanted to go into my coupon and this free triple foam, if I'm not going to use it anymore, I can right-click delete, and you'll notice that with my particular setup here, my deleted or deactivated items are set up to be gray and crossed off, and it's actually easy to tell which items are deactivated. Remember, this is a relational database, so when you deactivate or right-click delete on an item, you're not permanently removing it from the system. You are just deactivating that item from use, and that's a very important concept. Yours likely by default, if we were to flip in here and show the individual text styles, typically disabled items would show as like a red, and they wouldn't be italic or anything like that, and they wouldn't have the strikeout or anything. They would mostly just be a red style, so it would kind of look like this by default. But you'll see that what I've done to kind of make understanding mine a little bit easier is I've made my disabled items both italicized, I'll give it a strikeout text, and I make it a light gray so that there's that really high contrast when I'm checking disabled items versus enabled. And typically you don't have to look at disabled items unless you are going to right-click delete to disable. Maybe you have a holiday type of promotion or a seasonal promotion that you want to deactivate, but maybe next year you want to reactivate it. You deactivate it really to make the list manageable and shorter for coupons and discounts, and you can reactivate and change things like the dates active, for example, if you're going to run a promotion for a new time of year. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about, one of the important fields, we're going to start with the item type. The item type really changes the behavior of an item in a sale. Like, for example, when I click a wash and it puts a wash into a sale, you'll notice that it is blue. It actually has a wash service associated with it. So if I were to trace this button and kind of go backwards and forensically look at how that were set up, I would need to go into the terminal pages, and I would need to find from this long list of pages the page that matches my page called wash. Now, I happen to know that we consider the terminal controller a screen terminal. It has a screen on it, a touch screen typically. So if you filter by the screen type of terminals when you're looking at your buttons, you're first going to get that list much shorter for you. The second thing that's important is that the name of the tab typically matches the caption that's on that tab. So if I look at this tab here, my wash page has got my 4 full service washes, I've got 3 express washes, and if I were to look at that here, it matches what I have here. I could actually left click, and you'll notice when I select a button, it puts that white bounding box around it. You can right click and it gives you a context menu, so you can do things like copy. And if I wanted to copy a button and paste it somewhere else, I can do that by right clicking again and paste. So right click copy, right click paste. So I've just done a simple button action automatically by copying this Good Express button, right click copy. Now if I did right click cut, it puts it in my clipboard so I could paste it here, or I can even move it to a different page. If I wanted to paste it somewhere else on another page, I could do it that way. So cutting or copying is going to not only put it in your clipboard so that you can paste it again or put it on another page, but cutting will remove it from the current placement, and copying will keep it in the current placement, but then also kind of put it in your clipboard so you can move it around from page to page if you had a button that you wanted to make available from multiple terminal pages. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just right click cut and right click paste. Now, one thing you'll notice, I'm getting a little ahead of myself because we're looking at the button types, but what I wanted to do is kind of forensically dig backwards and find out when I hit that good full service button, what does it actually do? And you'll notice if we scroll all the way over here to the right, there's 2 types of buttons that we can put on our terminals. There's specific item, and the function key is the other type. A specific item means I'm going to look through that same list of report categories and find an item that I'm going to put into a transaction. So in this case, there's a folder called Basic Wash Headers, and we found an underscore Good Express item. And when I press that button, it puts the good full service, I said Good Express, underscore Good Full Service item. It puts that in the sale. Now, one thing that you'll notice here as well is when you put an item into a transaction, one of the questions I often have is this a single item or is this multiple items? Like when I press that button, is it trying to do multiple things? And the way that you can tell that, there is this little button here. It expands the contents of your receipt. So when you hit this button here, you'll notice that it expanded it to at least 2 items now. So we're seeing that header, that underscore Good Full Service item, which is this item, but you're now seeing a second item called Good Full Service. And again, I just quickly wanted to show you the relationships between items. So we have the underscore under the Basic Wash Headers, we have the underscore Good Full Service. And you'll notice if something is considered a package leader, think of that like the engine on a train. It means it's going to pull cars along with it. It's going to pull additional items along with it. So what does this underscore Good Full Service header do? Well, first of all, itself, it's just a $0 item. So it doesn't add any price itself to the sale. But the next thing it will do, if we open up the package members, think of these like those train cars that come along with this header, it will in sequence, it's like somebody is behind the scenes pressing buttons. So they're pressing a Good Full Service button here. And if I were to click on this and see where that comes from, this is actually from the Basic Washes folder. And that's what brings in the price and actually the wash service into the transaction. And you'll notice another thing that it tries to do is it tries to apply an early bird wash discount. And the cool thing about being set up like this as a header is that I don't have to train my staff. If I offer something like a Wacky Wednesday or an early bird promotion, I don't have to train them to hit a different button each time. They can just hit the good wash, that good full service, every single time a customer wants that. And then during the times that they're eligible for an early bird wash discount, that will come into the sale. I can actually let you know from experience when I logged in earlier today, it was early enough that the early bird special was still happening. And so I actually recorded some transactions with the early bird special in it just by hitting that good full service wash. So that's kind of an intro first to the items themselves and packages of items, but I wanted to talk about the item type. So the item type, the good full service wash that was actually showing is this item here, and it is a type wash service. Wash service determines a couple things. You'll notice here on this screen, over on the right-hand side, these are all of the fields that are necessary for a wash service type of item. You'll notice some items are more complex and some items are less complex. So if I were to quote unquote change this to a different item type, you'll notice as I click off that field, it actually removed some fields that are no longer necessary. If I change it again to a paid out item type, again, it changes some of the fields or it changes some of the descriptions of the fields. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is that your wash services, when I have something of type wash service, it has a service associated with it. And from our other trainings, you'll actually learn that the service is what turns the thing on in the tunnel to actually wash the car. So it's important to have a service associated with your item. But the other piece to that is the fact that this is a blue item, a wash service is a blue item. So the type determines the color of the item. In fact, if I were to quickly change this, instead of being a wash service, I wanted to change it to a merchandise, a non-taxable merchandise item. And I save that by clicking the checkbox. And then I go back here and I reload my terminal pages. Now when I sell my good full service wash, you're going to notice it's black. It's no longer that blue color. There's no longer a W indicating that a wash service is here. Why? Because there's no more a service tied to this item. So the item does go into the sale. It still charges $14 because it's a positive item as a merchandise item, but it doesn't charge tax because this is a merchandise no tax item. It doesn't actually fire a wash service because it's no longer considered a wash service item. So the item type is probably the most important thing that determines A, how the item reacts, and then B, which fields are utilized in the configuration or setup of this item. You'll notice now that I changed it back to a wash service, it actually blanked out my service. So that I don't break anything, I'm going to put that wash service back on there so that it now sends a wash to the tunnel. This would not be something that I would suggest playing around with or changing on your own. I'm doing this for sheer demonstration purposes, but I want you to make sure that you understand that you wouldn't likely change these. Typically, you're going to see that as we talk about simple item changes and edits, the things you will likely do are duplicate an item or maybe change a price associated with an item, maybe add a new button. These are the types of things that we're going to cover in a short training class today. But I wanted to illustrate this idea that first, the item type determines how it acts in a sale. It even determines whether it's positive or negative. In fact, if I would change the type to a coupon, it would take this $14 and try to apply it as a fixed price coupon rather than a positive item. So the basic way an item acts is based off of type. And then the second way that an item acts is based off of the rules. I'll quickly want to talk about some other important fields. Active at is important. Active at all, if we look at my list of sites here, we can have, depending on the size of your organization, you can have a single site. So if you could be active at just a single site off of this list. So if it said NCCWOHHQ1, it means that this good full service is only used at that one site. If I say use it at all sites that are signified with a car wash group or in a car wash group of sites, that would be active there. Quick Lube's the same way. I have another site that's just called First. So this would be just at my first site and no other site. So one was just at the office. Now this is just at the site. If I want it active at all, here's actually a quick little tip, especially for your power users that use the keyboard. Hit the space key because a lot of folks don't realize that all actually has a little space in front of it. So when you hit the space key, it switches it to active at all by default. So ActiveAt's important, especially if you have multi-sites within your organization. If it's not active at all, it means I can't press this button or get this item into a sale at all of my sites. It'll only be at the sites defined in the ActiveAt field. The next one is groups, and this one is now these inventory minimums, report category. We talked about the service. Report category, this is actually very simple. Our basic report is our general sales report. And where something shows on the general sales report is dependent on that report category. So I sold some good expresses and good full services earlier today when I was doing some demonstration before I came on this call. And you'll see that the fact that this good full service is in this wash sales section is based off of its report category. In fact, if I go to that same good full service item and I change the report category, and I maybe change it to wash extras, I'm not necessarily changing what items were sold, but in our Pantheon system, or excuse me, in our SiteWatch system, what this means is that I've moved it to a different reporting category. So you'll notice good full service left wash sales and is now showing down here under wash extras. So where it shows on the report is based off of its report category. So that's an important field. I'm going to change that back so I don't break any of my reports. Again, that was mostly just demonstration. The other fields, inventory minimum, just so you know, if you set up something as a merchandise product and you put an inventory minimum on it, so for example, if you have like store products, maybe impulse merchandise or things that you sell, if you add a minimum on hand to that field, and you'll notice here what I'm doing is you can press plus or minus to kind of change the display size and make it a little bit more visible for you. But if you add an inventory minimum, you'll notice that what it does is it pops up two additional fields that will allow you to record a wholesale cost and a retail value associated with that item. So let's just say, for example, maybe I have varying air fresheners and I buy them wholesale for 72 cents a piece and I sell them for that $1.99. What this is going to do is this will allow me to create cost of goods type of reports, as well as inventory, the cost on hand of my inventory reports. So there are some reports that are inventory based, inventory audit and inventory levels. And if you want to have not only cost of goods sold, but reorder quantities associated with that, you'll need to put a minimum and then a wholesale and a retail value associated with those items that you sell. That's just a little side tip regarding inventory. But let's talk about groups. And the groups field is one of those that's actually utilized quite a bit, and it's utilized in conjunction with some of the other rules that we're going to introduce here as we move on forward. So you'll notice here, just as an example, you may have noticed that my site has a best express, a better express, and a good express. And then I've got full service versions of those washes, but also I have a full service best plus. So I offer 7 different washes. The main differences between these first 3 is not what happens in the tunnel. It's just that these full service ones, I maybe vacuum the inside and do the dash and windows, and that's it. That's the main difference. They cost a different amount. A full service good is $14, where an express only good is super cheap. At my site, it's $5. So they're spending that $9 for the interior cleaning, etc. And vacuuming is associated with that, and the extra labor obviously associated with a full service type of transaction. But why did I bring that up? Well, you can use this concept of grouping to take arbitrary groups of items and put them together. Like, for example, if I wanted to say, maybe I want to create a button that just shows just my express washes, I can come into, you'll notice this says sales items, categories, and reports. And then under here, there's actually a field called groups. So these are all the built-in groups. And there are going to be some custom ones in here as well. But I can go down, for example, to like a wash group. Just going to, sorry about that. Going to scroll down. Sometimes it's easier said than done when you're scrolling down. There we go. So I've got a wash item group here. And if I duplicate that by right-clicking and duplicating it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this Express Washes. So I'm going to create my own group called Express Washes, and I'm going to save that group. Now, you'll notice when you create your own group, when you duplicate a group or you create a group, then what you can actually do is click on this section called Item List, and you're able to add items to that group that way. So if I wanted to find my Express washes, for example, I could search for the Good Express, and there's that one. You'll notice I just double clicked and it moved it over to the right hand side. If I search for my Better, you'll notice I'm just clicking in here and just starting to type. So if I just start typing Better, I will eventually find a Better Express item, and that's this one. So you're able to add items to your group that way, and I'll click Save. You're also able to go into the items themselves. So if you remember, my Express washes were, we've got Good Express here. We've got a wash package. That's where my Best Express was located, and Better Express. And you'll notice that I added the group to that item. If we click on the groups that it's associated with, and by the way, you can be part of multiple groups. This new Express Washes group is a group that I just created. So it has the Better and the Good, and I didn't add the Best yet. So you'll notice when I look at its listing of groups, it doesn't have the Express Washes group, the new group that I just created as part of it. So to add the group to the item, it's the same process as adding the item to the group. On the editor here, you'll click on the left-hand side, and now I'm going to type the name of the group, which was Express Washes, and I'm adding that group now to my item. Now we'll find out in just a moment here why I did that. The first thing that I did was create a Express group, or, you know, these are my exterior only washes, so that I can create a coupon for those. Now your coupon can have a rule that checks, is this item in the Express group? That would be called an item checking or a group checking rule. And then you can also have ones that will say avoid giving this coupon if they're part of this group. So for example, if I have a $2 off full service coupon, I may say, group avoid this item or this coupon for the $2 off full service, avoid the Express Washes group. Now that I've created one, groups can be used for checking or for avoidance. So again, groups are just arbitrary selections of items. Another reason why you may add a group to an item is so that you can create a button on your terminal. And I'm just going to do that very quickly for you. If we go to our wash page here, and we look at our Express Washes here, I'm just going to right click and create a brand new button. And we're going to touch all of the pieces of a button at one time. So first of all, we have specific items that obviously will go through that list of report categories, and we can pick which items we want to fire. But then we also have this concept of something called a function key. Now, a function key means this key is a specific key that's kind of hard-coded. DRB did the hard work and coded it in so that it works a certain way. And there's actually a button called Show Lookup Group, and then you can pick the group that you want. Now, if I have no idea what type of function that is, if it's the first time I've ever gone there, then sometimes you can click another lookup group, something with lookup in the name typically, and you'll see that the function is actually called Sale Control. It's under a Sale Control grouping, and it's called Show Lookup Group. So what I could do is copy that, or I could just click on my button here and scroll down to the Sale Control section. So I can use my arrow keys or typically the scroll wheel on my mouse. For whatever reason, the scroll wheel is not working, so maybe I'll use the drag scroll wheel over here. You can also just start typing. So if I type in SA, it hops down to the Sale Control list, which is good. And then we want the function called Show Lookup Group. So I'm just going to arrow down, and we'll find Show Lookup Group eventually. And there it is right there, Show Lookup Group. There's actually some variations of the Show Lookup Group. Show Lookup Group would also display the prices along with the items. And then if you're using a keypad terminal, there's an additional function where the first button toggles through all your list of items in a lookup group, and then the second button selects an item from that lookup group. So that's why there's a select from lookup function. But on a screen terminal, Show Lookup Group shows a group of items. I'm going to call this Express Washes. And then we'll add the word lookup so that we know that this is a lookup button. And it's Sale Control, Show Lookup Group. And then we're just going to put that new Express Washes folder or group that I created. And we'll go ahead and click Save to keep those changes. And I'll reload the terminal and we'll test out. What is the benefit of doing something like this? Well, if you are at a premium for space on your terminal, adding a lookup group like this means that I can put the better, best, and good washes all in a lookup group. Now keep in mind, I fired these washes directly, so what it won't do, unlike this one that has the header in it and would also check for the existence of early bird specials, etc., I'm firing the washes directly here, so it's just got the price and the wash service, and if I hit the expand, it's only going to show me what's part of that wash, not a higher level of that expansion. So this is just what makes up that Better Express wash. So lookup groups use the group field as well as some of the rules. Now, you're probably asking yourself, or maybe you've seen by doing your own trial and error or watching a DRB support staff person kind of go through the setup, this idea of rules. Before that, actually, we'll take a quick side. I forgot there's a barcode is actually a really nice feature of SiteWatch. Having a barcode field means that you can associate any barcode. And by the way, SiteWatch will accept C39 barcodes, also UPC barcodes, code 128 barcodes. Those are all the types that we can interpret. And what we will do is if you put in a string of letters or characters into the barcode field, we will decode those barcodes. And so this could be used, for example, maybe you want to create a manager comp, coupon code and give it to your employee. This would be a way that you could do that. So first, we would make sure that there is something that exists in the wash coupon section for a manager's comp type of discount. And I may look at something that's already there as kind of a starting place of what I may want to do. So if I had something, for example, that takes a percentage off, 25% off of the wash base items, maybe I'll use that as my starting point. I'm actually going a little bit beyond what I was going to show you today, but I'll go ahead and call it manager comp. And then rather than taking 25% off, we're going to take 100% off. So I'll click the percentage field and change that 25 to a 100. Anytime you have these pop-up pricing editors that have multiple fields here, you can make your change and then just click the X to close it down. And then this only applied to wash base items. So if I wanted it to apply to all wash items, I would just click wash item rather than wash base item. So wash base items would be like your basic wash. Wash extra items would be your wash packages and or your a la cartes. But wash item is something that's inclusive of everything. So take 100% off of your wash items. And I probably, since I want this to be a manager's comp coupon, I want to add some security to it. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek into one of the rules we're going to talk about, which is a security group rule. And what is important when you are setting up items is that the order in which the rules appear on the selected value list is the order in which they're run. So when I press this button for Manager's Comp or I scan a barcode, it's going to first check, what's your security level? Do you have security group A security? And if you don't have that specified, it'll actually prompt you with a dialog to type in your user number and password. And then if that user number and password meets that group A criteria, it'll go to the next rule that says take 100% off of wash items. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that and save it. And I'm going to go one step further and add a barcode to it. I'm actually just going to type in a really simple barcode called using all letters, and it's just MGR comp. And I'm going to go ahead. And this means that it's a non-expiring barcode that'll work forever for this item. For as long as this item is active, it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and test that out. I haven't added a button yet, but I have a Better Express, which is something in the wash items category. And in order to test this, I'm kind of looking around and I'm seeing, okay, I don't have anything on my wash page. Maybe my cashier page, I might have a button to enter a barcode. So I'll click my cashier tab. And you'll notice here there's an enter barcode function. So I can actually just type that code that I just created, manager comp, MGR comp. And now if it can't find the barcode yet, it usually has to do with something like this. And this is why we test. That wasn't planned, but you'll notice I didn't save my changes after I added that barcode. So you need to save your changes and also make sure that you reload the terminal after those changes have been made, because that will reload any cached items or new item configuration down. And then I'm going to go ahead and try that again. enter barcode, MGR, COMP, and enter. And now it's asking me for the employee number and password. So it's hitting that security group rule, which I talked about. My user 11111 just so happens to have security to do this. So the manager comp went into the sale that way. So I know that we're kind of, our time is actually going pretty quickly here, and I'm throwing a lot of information out there, but let's just review. So adding a barcode to an item, by the way, if you wanted to go one step further, you could do a Google search for an online barcode generator. I actually use this one that's it's this one here with the little red, it's Rayco Industries, but it's the barcode.tech-it. Click on that one, and I know SiteWatch likes code 39, the typical basic ones, that's all capital letters. And so I'll type in that manager COMP and actually hit refresh. And now I've got a barcode. I could actually right click and copy this image, paste it to my social media, paste it to something, a label maker that I'm going to print off of my computer. So that's a quick way to create a nice little discount barcode and hand to your staff. So that's a little a side benefit here, but we're gonna let's take the last 5-10 minutes and just talk about some of those rules and maybe create a very specific item that's a little bit more involved, because certainly there's simple changes you can do. I showed you how to add a simple button. You can right click copy or paste. You can right click insert, but we want to take a look additionally at some of the things that you can do through knowing some of the rules. So rules really determine how an item behaves in a sale. You know, it either will check for something that already exists in the sale, or it'll act differently based off of other items that come into the sale. So it's basically the rules that you follow and how you're going to act. And you'll notice here in this sample, we've got two rules. The security group says you need to be an employee that has a certain security level to do this. And then the next one, % of all items, that's kind of saying that it's going to take a percentage discount out of all items within a transaction. There's over 125 rules. It would take the rest of the week and all the time in the week for me to go through each one of those and what they do. But a quick tip for you is when you are learning about rules, one of the things you can do is go into your configuration. So I'm going to go ahead into the configuration of one of my items here. And did I close down? I must have closed. Did I close this down already? I apparently hit it. That's one reason why you don't click a bunch of times. There we go. We already had one open. When you are on your items and you click in the rules, the little ellipsis button here, which opens the rules editor, this is a real nice tip. If you click on the name of a rule, you'll notice that what it does down here in this box is it tells you exactly. Now, apparently I've got a shift button or something stuck because it's trying to select multiple rules at once. There we go. If you click on an individual rule, it'll give you what that rule does. And here's tip number 2. If you want to know a little bit more about what a rule does, you can go into the help topics and actually just type the exact name of that rule. So fixed price, for example, and then it'll actually tell you some additional promotions around those rules and different types of things that you can set up using fixed pricing rules. And there's even some generic, if you type in how to set up, you can scroll down and see a whole bunch of topics on configuring different items, like how to set up blue coupons, wash extra coupons, notes, packages, etc. Again, we don't have a time in a 45-minute training here to kind of go through all of those things, but ultimately how to set up is a nice little topic that you can search the SiteWatch help, and then these are actually printable as well, so you can expand these sections out, and typically a Control P or we'll actually bring up the print dialog and allow you to print these to a local printer if you want to do that. Sometimes you can also, depending on the version that you have, there also may be the ability to bookmark some of these topics as well, depending on the version of Windows you're on. So let's take a look at some of the most utilized rules just to kind of give us an idea. Probably 95% of the scenarios that you can come up with are going to be addressed with rules on this list. So let's just determine what they do. First of all, there's two types of things that a rule will typically do. One is it will determine the applicability of the item. So when I say that, that would be like if you're checking if an item's already in the sale. Does this apply? So in the case of our express coupon that we wanted to make a $2 off express washes, for example, or $1 off express washes, we could have it check for that group. So there's a rule called group checking. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly and show you what that would do. So let's flip back over here. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate my manager's comp, and I'm just going to call this express washes. And I'm going to remove the rules that are on there already because I don't need security, but I'm going to actually build this from scratch. So group checking, what group checking will do is group checking will look for the existence of a certain item. So if we have a coupon that, for example, is something like $2 off express washes, we want it to check for the express washes group. Now, that only is half of what we need a coupon to do. The other half is we need some sort of pricing rule. So the main pricing rules that are associated with items are fixed price, open ranged price, or we have some of these applicability combo rules. And if they have the word discount in them, it means take off a flat dollar amount. And if it has PCT or percent in it, it means take off a certain percentage of this item. So discount is a flat dollar amount, PCT or percent is a percentage, or if it's just fixed price, it'll always take off $2 regardless. So in this instance, I can add group checking, and I need some sort of pricing rule because we need that ability to take off the $2. So I'm just going to put fixed priced. And you'll notice when I do that, it pops up the price field, and I can change that to $2, which is going to be the value of this discount. And then the fact that this is a type discount after tax means it's going to go into the sale, it's going to have a certain color, and it's also going to negate the symbol. Instead of having a positive item like our blue washes or our black merchandise items, it's going to have a negative item based on the fact that it is a type discount. It'll have a negative sign associated with it. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to add a coupon to it. There's just going to be 222. And instead of creating a button for that, and we're just going to test it out real quick. We'll reload. I'm going to sell. So I'll open up delete all entries from this sale by hitting this button. And then we're going to sell a express wash. So something in that express washes folder. And then we're going to go to the cashier tab and we'll add that 222 barcode. And we'll click enter, and there it worked. Now, it kind of worked the way I wanted to, but here's a problem with this. One, if I delete my Good Express Wash, you'll notice it left that $2 coupon behind. So having these generic check for something at the time that it runs and apply a fixed discount, that may seem like a quick way to get a coupon, but if your employee figures out that, oh, all I have to do is scan this coupon and then delete the wash, and then I can now pop my drawer and take $2 and stick it in my pocket, that's not a great thing. So you'll notice that there, with much power comes much responsibility. This is kind of the basic way to, in a very linear way, we checked for an item and we applied a discount using a fixed price. But if we want to make the discount only apply to that specific item type, we're going to actually want to use one of these combo rules. So if we want to group check and apply a discount only to that group, all in one rule, we would actually use a rule like this, a persistent group discount. So I'm going to replace those two rules that I had here with that one rule. We'll call it persistent group discount. We're going to take away those two other rules, but you'll notice when I click OK, those two fields still exist. The apply to group field and the discount amount field, which was the old fixed price field, still exists and they still have values in them. And it's because those rules will actually reutilize the same fields. They'll just call them something else. So the applied to group, the other one was item checking group or whatever, and this used to say fixed price cost. But it actually means we're using the same fields, we're just calling them in a friendly way something better. Now this is a better coupon or discount because what this will do is it'll check, but then it will apply. And this persistent, I like to think of this when I'm explaining this to someone. This is like that kid nagging you in the back of the car, right? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? It means that they can ask you that question before you get to your destination, right? Are you there yet? No. So what I'm going to do is kind of simulate that scenario. We'll go ahead and save. We'll go ahead and go back to our terminal. We're going to create the kid scenario. We're going to open a new sale. And we're going to create that kid scenario asking, are you there? Are we there yet? By actually applying the discount first. If we would have done this before, it would say, you don't have the appropriate group, express washes. When you have that persistent name in there, you'll notice it goes in the sale. Are you there yet? And the answer comes in the form of the amount. No, those items are not here in the sale yet. However, the cool thing about that is that I can scan that at any time. I don't have to train my cashier, only scan it after you put it in the wash. This is saying I'm going to take off $2 off express washes. And now if I put in something that's not an express wash, it doesn't apply. But if I hit something that is an express wash, it actually recalculates, and that persistent nature will say, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And once we get something that matches that criteria, the answer is yes, the express wash is now there. The $2 will come off, and it only applies to that. That also means I can't, negate that coupon or defraud the system and take $2 out of the drawer by removing the wash, because now the are we there yet question is answered no once you remove the wash from the sale. So persistent rules actually run, and they rerun anytime the sale changes. And that's probably the most important thing you can learn from this whole thing, from the whole training, is that persistent rules are where you really want to start. I would say the second most important thing that you want to learn from this training is when you're creating coupons or discounts, you'll want to duplicate a coupon that's there, something that works maybe the way you want the new one to work, but maybe you just have to change something like the name or the washes that it applies to, or that sort of thing. We're going to do one more just as a demo because I know time kind of ran away from us there. So we're going to flip a little bit, and we're going to show specifically the daytime checking and date checking rules. So daytime checking is pretty cool in that if I know that today is Monday, the 21st of April, if I want to inherently add some sort of expiration to this, I can actually put what's called date checking. And then what date checking will allow me to do, if I add a date checking rule to my rules, and I'll actually put that first because I don't want it to apply a discount before it checks for the date. So check date, what date am I going to check? Well, it tells you down here, you can actually type this in. And if you're unsure of the format, here's another little tip if anybody's out there taking notes. If you press Shift and the F1 key, it brings you help just for that single field that you're in. So date checking, it basically says enter your beginning and ending dates in this format, month, day, year, and then 2 separated with the word 2. So we would do 04/01/25 space the word 2. Maybe we're only running it to the end of this month. 04-30-25. And then when we click off, it checks that formatting, and it'll actually put the year in the 4-digit format for you. And now we validated that. So this works. We're still within that range. So if I were to remove this coupon and add it back, it'll still work because it will check that we are valid within that range. And it still works. In fact, here's another little tip for you. If you double click this area where it shows the display here, it'll actually show you behind the scenes. You'll sometimes see the rules that it's parsing through. So like when I was putting in the Good Express, for example, it was trying to add a Wacky Wednesday and an early bird discount when I was trying to put in this better full service. And then it was failing adding these items because one of them could only be added before 10 a.m., which was the early bird, Monday through Thursday, and the Wacky Wednesday could only be used Wednesday after 10 a.m. but to 11:59 p.m. So you can actually see if something doesn't work or go into a sale. Sometimes you can double click that little persistent message window and see why. Now, just to prove that that works, if I change my start date to, say, the 28th, which is a date in the future, oops, I have to type the format properly, so /28, and we'll save that. Now, notice reloading doesn't reapply this rule because this item already made it into the sale. The only way to reapply this would be to delete it out of the transaction and actually try to put it back into the transaction because that's when it checks for those dates. So we'll go ahead and do that. And there we are. You get a message that's only allowed between this time. So this is a way you can inherently build some expiration or date active into your promotions. The final thing I wanted to do is just give you a little bit of tips about the Terminal Pages editor. One, you can change the background color by clicking on a button, and you'll click the name button up here, and you can just pick a background color. And another good tip is when you click the text area and you pick a text color, pick something with a very high contrast so that it's easy to read. Even think about, I may want to make white text, for example, because it's not real easy to read that yellow or green on, especially if you have somebody with an employee that may have red-green color blindness or something, you wouldn't put like a green text on a red. Use high contrast, and that'll help your employees. Also, you can use capital letters. That actually helps with the readability because of the size of these buttons in some cases. So again, those are some quick tips that might help you a little bit more. And I did mention to you that a reason why I close out of this editor, a lot of folks don't realize this, is that it's very simple to inadvertently, find a button and then accidentally click off of the function. And if you click off to a specified item and back to the function, I've actually broken this button completely because it used to be a lookup group button and now it's set to customer loyalty. So word to the wise, if you ever start playing around with setting up your own buttons and you find that now when you press a button, usually it's this current user button or the button in the upper left is the one that most likely gets messed up. If you find that when you press that button, it's now asking you for a license plate and it never asked you for that before, you likely went ahead and remapped that button. Why did I bring that up? Well, it's important for a couple different reasons. One, this little rollback pencil, if I inadvertently did that, I can hit this abandon changes, and then it'll roll back that edit, and I can go now to that button, and it's back to the sale control function. So it went back to my last save, which was right before I inadvertently messed that button up. But the other thing that I did point out earlier is typically when I'm creating a new button, I'll click off and back on to make sure it's still mapped properly, but then I'll instantly close this editor. And the reason I close that editor is because we haven't necessarily figured out the behavior behind it, but what can happen sometimes is that those functions get mismapped or unmapped. So, well, thanks all. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I appreciate you coming out to our DRB training course today. Thank you.